Hey everybody, Keep7 here, back with another Magic the Gathering Arena video, and today we are going over some Kaldheim spoilers. So between yesterday and today, I was just kind of scouring Twitter and Reddit, which are kind of the two main resources that I use to look for spoilers, to kind of condense down all the spoilers into one video that I have, all the spoilers that I've been able to find on those two platforms, to kind of condense it down for those of you who maybe don't look at either platforms. You can kind of watch these videos and you'll be able to kind of find, at least everything that I find in those two places. So we have a handful of new cards that are being spoiled for Kaldheim. So if you're not into spoilers, obviously you don't watch this video. But if you do want to see some of the cards that are going to be coming up in the Kaldheim set, you can keep watching and maybe give your input on what you think about the cards. So I'll be putting them up on the screen so you can follow, or as I go through them, so you can follow along. So first we have Kaya the Inexorable. It's a 5-mana Planeswalker, 3, a white and a black. Let's see if can I zoom in here? I can. Alright, so she has a +1 ability. Put a ghost form counter on up to one target non-token creature. It gains when this creature dies or is put into exile, return it to its owner's hand and create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. She has a -3 loyalty ability, exile target non-land permanent, and a -7. You get an emblem with, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may cast a legendary spell from your hand, from your graveyard, or from among cards you own in exile without paying its mana cost. And she's 5 loyalty to begin with. So I guess, so we'll go through each card, and then, maybe a few thoughts afterwards. We don't want to spend too much time on every card. So +1 ability, put a ghost form counter on up to one target non-token creature. It gains when this creature dies or is put into exile, return it to its owner's hand and create a 1/1. Okay. -3 exile target non-land permanent, and then -7 get an emblem with, you can return a legendary spell for. Okay, so this could slot right into like Esper Doom Foretold Yorion, right? Pretty well. I mean, it's expensive. It's also a 5-mana spell, so is Yorion. But like one of these in those decks could be pretty good. I mean, it's something else to blink, so you can use her -3 and then blink her with Yorion, and she's back up to 5. So that's pretty good. You can +1 on Yorion, so if Yorion dies, leaves the battlefield, but you get him back into your hand to re-blink everything. That sounds really good, right? And you get a 1/1 token in the process, which, it's a blocker, it's a chump blocker, it's nothing to scoff at. And then a -7, you can cast a legendary spell from your hand, graveyard, or among cards you own in exile without paying its mana cost. If your Yorion is dead, in the graveyard, in exile, in your hand, or wherever, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. So if it's in your hand, obviously it doesn't matter too much, but I mean, you get to pay for a Yorion without having to pay, or you get the effect of a Yorion without having to pay for a Yorion. So like a 1 of, 2 of, maybe this is a lot better than I'm thinking. Maybe it's 5 mana, but maybe that doesn't matter. So maybe she slots right into the Doom Foretold Yorion decks. Could absolutely see that. So I think it's a pretty good card. I mean, a -3 with an exile effect is pretty good. Having to pay 5 mana to -3 with this feels bad. It's kind of like paying 5 mana to -3 with a Teferi, Hero of Dominaria, which doesn't feel good. But her +1's pretty good, her -3's pretty good, her -7's obviously pretty good. So for 5 mana, it's a bit pricey, but I can see it being played. All right. So next we have a 2-mana instant, armed and armored. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures until end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control. Attach any number of equipment you control to it. So that's support for vehicles, which obviously, they were reintroduced with, in Kaladesh. So in Historic, but I mean, Historic's so powerful. I mean, and this is such a specific and narrow card, right? Choose a dwarf you control, so you have to control a dwarf, and vehicles become artifact creatures until end of turn. I don't know where that really becomes like relevant, right? I don't know. This is a very narrow card, and it would only belong in like a select number of decks. I don't think this is something you're going to be seeing played a lot. If you have a vehicle deck and you have like a vehicle dwarf combo deck, then not combo, but you know, a combination of those two tribes or those two creature types, then I guess that's something you can play. Next we have Cleaving Reaper. 5 mana, 3 and 2 black, Angel Berserker creature with flying and trample, or flample, as it is known to be called. Pay 3 life, return Cleaving Reaper from your graveyard to your hand. Activate this ability only if you had an Angel or Berserker enter the battlefield under your control this turn, and she's a 5/3. A 5 mana 5/3 where you can pay life to get her from your graveyard back into your hand. And that's with some downside. You can only activate it when you have an Angel or Berserker enter the battlefield under your control this turn. It's very, again, that's kind of like that's kind of very narrow. You're gonna have to play like an Angel or Berserker deck for that to be kind of relevant. And a 5 mana 5/3. It's just a little weak on the toughness portion, but she has evasion with flying, and trample's nice. Trample in the air is nice, but like, how good is trample if you only have 3 toughness? So, I don't know. Like, Baneslayer Angel, which is kind of considered not a very good card in the current meta, just kind of laughs at this. So if a bad card in the meta laughs at this, then I don't know. You pay 3 life, so there's some recursion, but I don't know. This next card's actually kind of interesting, if not a meta player. Another 5 mana, very similar to the exactly similar to Kaya. Same exact casting cost. 3, a white and a black, so 5 total mana. 3 white, black. Enchantment. When Rampage of Valkyries enters the battle, it's called Rampage of Valkyries. When it enters the battlefield, create a 4/4 white angel token with flying and vigilance. Whenever an angel you control dies, each other player sacrifices a creature. So this also could slot into those Yorion blink decks. You blink this and you create a bunch of 4/4 white angel creature tokens with flying and vigilance, and then anytime one of those dies, the opponent also has to sacrifice their creature. So like almost another Doom Foretold in a Doom Foretold deck. A 1 mana more Doom Foretold that also creates a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. So, and I mean, if you're playing this, like whenever an angel you control dies, like how often is that going to happen? If you play like a Miria's Call in a Yorion Doom Foretold deck, then there's 2 more angels, and when those die, they have to sacrifice a creature. And every time you blink this, you create an angel, and if they kill it, then they have to sacrifice a creature. So it's just that could get out of hand. So this could potentially again be a player in those decks for sure. And then otherwise, it's a pretty narrow card again because it forces you. What I'm seeing a lot in just these few cards. And then obviously I've already seen the rest of the cards, so I know there's one card that it just feels like they're pushing tribal, like in this set. They want you to play like just play tribes, play tribes, play tribes. It just feels like there's a lot of really narrow cards where it's like just narrow creature type. You know, they're keeping cards with specific creature types and those kind of things in mind with all these cards. So it is very narrow in that it's angels that you control, but it creates an angel, so that's good. At the very least, you get that. In Historic, could make some real janky decks with this and like Divine Visitation and stuff like that. That would be crazy. So, has a lot of jank potential, and then also has like legitimate meta potential in like Yorion Doom Foretold decks. I might just start calling the Yorion Doom Foretold decks Dorian decks. All right, next we have Halvar, God of Battle, which is a fucking cool name. So he's a 4 mana, 2 and 2 white, legendary god creature. Creatures you control that are enchanted or equipped have double strike. At the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or equipment attached to a creature you control to target creature you control. And he's a 4/4. A 4/4 for 4 gives other creatures that are enchanted or equipped double strike, and at the beginning of each combat, you may attach target aura or equipment. So you get a free equip at the beginning of each combat, which is pretty sick. Difficult casting cost with 2 white. But then he's also a modal dual-faced card. So on the other half, or on the other side, on the other face of the card, is Sword of Realms, a 2 mana, 1 and a white legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has vigilance. Whenever equipped creature dies, return it to its owner's hand, and you can equip it for 1 and a white. So if you watched my last video, I mentioned that I didn't think that this set would have dual-faced lands, where it was spell on one side, land, spell or creature on one side, land on the other. And I guessed, or basically said that because, Vikings use a lot of axes and equipment and stuff like that, that maybe the modal dual face cards for Kaldheim would be equipment one side and creature or something on the other. I also said that I thought that because they made a lot of, they made the Nahiri, they made planeswalkers and stuff in Zendikar that used equipment, but they didn't really push equipment because Zendikar was the land set. So I posited or guessed that perhaps they would push equipment in this one because equipment is kind of Viking themed and blah, blah, blah. And it looks like I was right. So I'm really, really stoked about that. Anyway, back to the card. Halvar, very cool card, difficult casting cost. Cool to see that we have legendary god creatures and stuff like that. Doesn't have indestructible like the gods from Theros. But I think if you put indestructible on this guy, it might be a little bit too tough. A 4-mana indestructible 4/4 that has this much upside would be difficult. He is mythic. And it's cool that he has, I think the dual face thing is pretty cool. What kind of deck are you using this in? Maybe one of those, there was that mono white, kind of like the Auras deck in Historic, the Azorius or the Azorius Auras deck in Historic, where it's just, play creature, play protection spell, play equipment and beef up your creatures and make them attack, or equipment and auras and stuff. Could fit into a deck like that. Maybe Boros Embercleave becomes a playable deck, something. It's just difficult to imagine with all those difficult casting costs. This guy's double white, Embercleave is double red. I mean, you have to find a way to ramp into these big finishers to really make it viable, so it's hard to say. We have Maul of the Skyclaves in white, so you can make a mono white aggro, equipment based deck or something like that. So I think we have to see more of the equipment that's going to be coming out, more of these dual-faced equipments and stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is the only dual-faced equipment. Maybe they're not all dual-faced equipment. Who knows? But at the very least, it's a cool card. It'll be interesting to see if it slots in anywhere, if it finds a home. Could just be a dud. We don't know. But yeah, cool card. I like his name. Halvar is pretty cool. Next, we have Canopy Tactician, which is a 4-mana elf warrior creature. Other elves you control get +1/+1, and you can tap it to add 3 green mana. And it's a 3/3. So it's an elf lord, basically. I don't know. 4 mana makes this kind of... Doesn't so in Historic doesn't get hit by a Collected Company, so, and I think Elves as a deck doesn't need a 4-mana Lord, doesn't need another 4-mana Lord. Maybe it does though. Maybe you just ramp into more and more +1/+1 stuff, and you just make a huge wide board of a huge freaking Elves. Tapping it for 3 green mana, that means this basically only belongs in mono green, right? Why would you ever want to tap for 3 green mana if you can't really use 3 green mana? Is Elves in Standard playable? What elves do we even have? Llanowar Visionary? Yeah, so kind of a dud, if you ask me. Unless I'm not seeing anything, I don't think that's doing anything. Next we have Magda, Brazen Outlaw, a 2-mana 1 and a red, legendary creature, dwarf berserker. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0. Whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. Sacrifice 5 treasure tokens. Search your library for an artifact or dragon card. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. She is a 2/1. So see, again, they're put dwarves. She if you have other dwarves, she'll pump them. What dwarves? We have Torbran, obviously relevant dwarf. Rimrock Knight, relevant good dwarf. And I'm just thinking standard right now. 7 dwarves? Or did 7 dwarves rotate? Was 7 dwarves in Throne of Eldraine? So it's 7 dwarves playable now? What? I don't know. again, because I don't like tribal is a way to play that's obviously suboptimal. But if they're really pushing it, maybe the suboptimal strategy or the suboptimal way to play the game becomes more meta, becomes better. It becomes a better way to play because they give it so much support. So maybe dwarf tribal is a thing, or maybe just the plus, the +1/+0. Maybe she slots right into mono red, and it just makes your Torbrand that much better. And maybe Rimrock Knight becomes more playable in mono red. Mono red is in a tough spot right now because there's just so much better to do with like rule adventures and stuff. So does this see the light of day? Maybe. I think mono red needs a little bit more than this to be playable. Sacrifice 5 treasure, search your library for an artifact or dragon card. What dragons do we have in standard that are good or playable? Leyline Tyrant? Like, I'm seeing all these like buzzwords, and I'm just not thinking of cards that are like any good. Oh, Terror of the Peaks. Terror of the Peaks. That's a fantastic dragon. But like, does Terror of the Peaks become part of mono red now, or maybe I'm focusing too much on mono red? Like, could you make like a Rimrock Knight Terror of the Peaks, a Torbrand Magda deck? Torbrand increases damage from red sources. Terror of the Peaks will help you go over the top. She will pump your Torbrand. Rimrock Knight, for like whatever reason, he's a dwarf. There could be something there. I don't know. This next card is really interesting. And I've been hearing it compared to another famous Magic card called Birthing Pod, which apparently was incredibly powerful. This is called Pyre of Heroes. It's a 2 colorless mana artifact. For 2 colorless mana, you tap it and sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card that shares a creature type with the sacrificed creature that has converted mana cost equal to 1 plus that creature's converted mana cost. Put that card onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Activate this ability only anytime you can cast a sorcery, and it's a rare. So you sacrifice a creature, and you get to put a creature that's 1 converted mana cost higher. So if you sacrifice a Terror of the... Well, that's a... What's a 6 mana card? Yeah, if you sacrifice a Terror of the Peaks, you get a Gargaroth. That's just... Or no, Gargaroth is 5 mana too. Shit. If you sacrifice a Brushfire Elemental, you can get a Bone Crusher Giant or a Lovestruck Beast. Although, no, it has to share a creature type, doesn't it? That shares a creature type. Yeah, so again, this is pushing that. So the example I just gave was just for your so you can understand the converted mana cost part. They actually have to share a creature type. So this is again them pushing the tribal, if you see what I mean. Like they're pushing, it has to share a creature type. So like if you sacrifice a 2/2 or a 2 mana wolf, you can get a 3 mana wolf. Or like if you sacrifice, if you sacrifice a 2 mana dwarf, you can get a 3 mana dwarf. So this is just them pushing, the creature type kind of thing. I don't know, like, as far as sharing a creature type, it couldn't it be like couldn't you do like human warrior, dwarf warrior, human warrior type thing? Because because warrior, or is that a different classification? I'm not entirely sure on the rules there. Very interesting. This could be something, This could be something. I'm not thinking of it right now. I'd really have to kind of it's tough. I mean, I could open the MTG, I could open the Arena app right now and sift through cards, but I mean, I don't want to take a million years on each one of these. There's something here, I think. There's either a very janky deck that's very fun to play here. It's either garbage, or there's some jank, or there's something to it, and it could be meta. I don't know. So basically, I don't know what this card is. I like it though, and I'm definitely going to try to build something with this because I think that's cool. Again, and I, when I say that playing tribal is suboptimal, that's true, but it doesn't mean it's bad. There are better ways to play. Like, you shouldn't confine yourself to a creature type just for the sake of doing that. Like, if it's good, like if like way back when, Fairies was a very good deck. I only know this because I read a few Magic the Gathering books, but Fairies was a very popular deck and very powerful deck to play way back in the day. And if it's powerful and it's good and blah blah blah, then restricting yourself to Fairies is fine. And like Rogues is another good example. Rogues is a really good deck, and it's kind of quote unquote tribal, but it's there's tribal and then there's meta tribal, right? So that's my point. All right, next is Realm Walker. 3 mana, 2 and a green, creature shapeshifter. Changeling. This card is every creature type. That's interesting. As Realm Walker enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. Ooh. And it's a 2/3. This card... So if they're really pushing for... Wait a minute. And is this a buy a box? That could be shitty. Because this card could... Okay, so if they're pushing like tribals and like, play one creature type or like 2 creature types in your entire deck, like that's the extent of it. If they're really pushing that in this set, then this card's going to be really good for that kind of play, right? Because you get to draw a card. You may look at the top card. You may cast creature spells from the top of your library. Okay, so that's not as good as I thought, but that's still pretty good. Getting to cast a creature spell from the top of your library. It's not as good as I thought. I thought it was you draw a card. I misread. So you can cast creature spells from the... Okay, so that's pretty good. And it slots into any deck that you play tribal. If you're playing like hard tribal, like, again, wolves, this is just an example. If you're playing like wolf tribal, being able to cast, a wolf off the top of your deck is pretty nice. And having this be able to be a wolf is kind of nice. So, I like it. I think that it's good. I mean, it's not great. It's definitely, if you're playing tribal, I think it's a decent addition. You can look at the top card of your library anytime. That's obviously always nice. Makes scrying a lot easier. It's a buy a box promo. I think. Maybe not. There's a standard and buy a box version. You can see it. I'll throw these up on the screen. All right. Next is a card that I don't know how I feel. Showdown of the Skalds. 4 mana, 2, a red, and a white. It's an enchantment saga, so possibly more enchantment sagas are back. Exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until the end of your next turn, you may play those cards. That's Saga 1. And then Sagas 2 and 3 are the same. Whenever you cast spells this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And it's the same thing for Saga 3. Exiling the top blank cards of your library. Like, what does that remind you of? It should be Escape to the Wild. Is it Escape to the Wilds or Escape to the Wilderness? The card that was banned. the adventure card that was banned. It admittedly did let you play an extra card or play an extra land the turn it was played and stuff like that, but exiling the top blank cards of your library is never like a good... That's always something that like gets banned. Because just that much advantage. Because it's essentially just putting 4 cards in your hand, and it's putting a little pressure on you, saying you have to play them by the end of your next turn. But like if you're playing mostly cheap cards, like that's not really a setback. And then whenever you cast a spell this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Does Yorion like this? Probably, right? But like you have to be playing like Yorion creature, which is kind of weird. So maybe not like Yorion Doom Foretold. Maybe like Yorion value like you put creatures on the board and you blink stuff. Maybe I'm thinking too much of Yorion, but like some sort of Boros or Mardu, like creature based deck. I don't know. That first saga just threw me. When I see exile top blank cards of your library and then the ability to play those cards, I always get worried. Obviously nowhere near as powerful as like an Omnath, but like, whoa, man. It doesn't draw... Well, I mean, it doesn't draw you any cards, but it does. It draws you 4, essentially. It's a draw 4. It's a 4 mana draw 4 with upside. On following turns, it can also put +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. It's like some sort of like burn, like Boros burn. Cheap removal and like burn spells. Bone Crusher Giant for 2 mana. That's the thing. If you pay 4 mana for this, you're going to want mana left over so you can cast the spells you draw, right? Because it doesn't say exile the top blank cards of your library and then cast them without paying their mana cost type thing. It just says you can play until end of turn. So you're going to want like 6, 7, 8 mana before you cast this, so you potentially can cast 1 or 2 spells the turn it's cast and maybe 1 or 2 spells the turn after. You could do it for 4, and then you risk potentially exiling a bunch of spells and never playing them, and you just exile the top 4 cards of your library type thing. It seems good. I'll say that. Is it broken? I don't think so. Is it good? Yes. But it could be bad. I might be wrong. It might be just trash. But exiling the top X cards of your library always is good. It puts 4 cards in your hand, essentially. So, I think this card is good. And I think people are going to find a way to break it. Or at least, a way to maximize its value. Next, we have a 7 mana, 5 and 2 blue giant wizard creature, Sirtland Elementalist. As an additional cost to cast this spell, reveal a giant card from your hand or pay 2 mana. Whenever Sirtland Elementalist attacks, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying its mana cost, and it's an 8/8. As an additional cost to cast the spell, reveal a giant from or pay 2. Oh wow! So it's a 9. It's a 9 mana. It's a 9 mana spell, or you have to reveal a giant card from your hand. So again, tribal. I think this seals it. Almost every single card here has been super narrow or pushed some sort of tribal like thing. It's an 8/8. A 9 mana 8/8 or a 7 mana 8/8 that makes you reveal a card from your hand. Whenever it attacks, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand without paying its mana cost. An 8/8 that lets you cast spells from your hand without paying its mana cost. So, like, is it spells? You have, like, Bone Crusher Giant and this. Ooh, or Jeskai with, like, Realm Cloak Giant, Bone Crusher Giant, and this guy. I mean, that's a lot, though. That's a lot of mana. Like, Realm Cloak Giant costs a lot, and this guy would cost a lot. And Bone Crusher doesn't, but you could do, like, some sort of, like, Jeskai control or, like, burn with, like, giants as, like, Bone Crusher Giant is your early removal, and obviously you'd want to have a bunch of early removal. And then you could have, like, 1 or 2 of, like, Realm Cloak Giant and this guy, or something like that, right? You can recast instant or sorcery spells from your hand, though. Like, your hand is not a resource that's going to have instants and sorceries in it a lot, especially by the time you cast this guy. Unless you have a shit ton of draw, like, your hand is going to be, like, very low on resources. Like, if this guy attacks, wouldn't you rather just have a Dream Trawler? Like, right? If you're playing an instant or sorcery-based deck, you're probably playing, like, Control or, like, Burn or, like, is it spells or, like, something, You're playing some form of control or, like, aggro or something. Like, aggro doesn't care about this guy because he's too expensive. And, like, control, as far as a control finisher, like, you just want Dream Trawler instead. He draws you the card, and then you can pay its mana cost, but do you really care about not paying its mana cost? Like, I'd rather just have the card, and it's like, if I'm playing a counter spell, like, I'm gonna have to wait till their turn anyway, So, I don't know. Maybe there's some mid-range giant deck out there that I'm just not thinking of. I mean, I guess if you want to do Jeskai Giants, and you do, like, Bone Crusher Giant, Realm Cloak Giant, this guy, and, like, but that's the thing, Beanstalk Giant, they're all so fucking expensive. Like, and what are you going to do? Like, 4 color giants? I don't know, maybe Teamer Giants? Like, I'd say you'd want the Realm Cloak Giant, right? Because, like, if you play a Realm Cloak Giant, you just get rid of everything that's not a giant, which is going to be pretty much everything. And, like, you have I don't know. Whatever. Don't listen to me. Next, we have Valkyrie Harbinger, which is a 6 mana, 4 and 2 white, angel cleric creature with flying and lifelink. She is a 4/5. At the beginning of each end step, if you gain 4 or more life this turn, create a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying and vigilance. You could, wow, ooh, oh, Shit. You could do like some really cool like Orzhov or Esper control and like have this guy and like or this chick or whatever this person angel. You could have this angel and like that Orzhov enchantment and just oh man. Like do like or maybe like a mid-range life gain angel tribal. Ooh. I'm getting this is cool. I don't know. Like Angels is potentially playable. Angels life gain like Baneslayer Angel, and this Legion Angel doesn't. Just you gotta have lifelink in there. You know, you gotta have ways to gain the 4 life. She is obviously a way to gain 4 life because she is flying in lifelink. But like, oh, there's some cool stuff you could do. Like mid-range Angels, I'm looking out for you. That could be very cool. Like Orzhov mid-range Angels, and like you got the enchantment, you got the this, you got the that, and you know, oh, you got a lot. And then maybe throw a couple Yorians main deck. They don't see it coming. Bing bang boom, bouncing shit, making Angels. Very cool. Very fucking cool. Okay. Overall, at the beginning of each end step, if you gain 4 or more life, so it's conditional. It doesn't. You know, it's not pushed into any sort of tribal. You know, this is the first card I think that we've looked at that doesn't really say you need to be playing tribal in this new set. But man, like a 6-mana 4/5 isn't great. Flying and lifelink are great, and the fact that she can pay for the angel, like maybe like a. That's the thing. It's like, is it a control finisher? No, it's not. It's not a control deck finisher. Because a control deck finisher will be like Dream Trawler. Dream Trawler is like one of the best control deck finishers. And like things that are hard to remove and that draw you cards. Like Dream Trawler really does it all. And this just easily gets removed before it can generate you any value. Like, unless you get the 4 life. But that's the thing. If this thing dies before the end of each end step. So if you can gain life on your opponent's turn too, if you can gain life on your opponent's turn and on your turn, Baneslayer Angel helps this a lot because Baneslayer Angel is a first strike blocker, a 5/5 first strike blocker. So if they try to attack into it, just block that shit, and then you've gained life on their turn. But you know they'd be an idiot to attack into a first strike Angel. But sometimes people forget that Baneslayer Angel has first strike. So you get the first strike damage or whatever, that's 5 damage, or that's 5 life on their turn, and then you attack with Baneslayer Angel, that's 5 life on your turn or whatever. So there's potential there. So like, again, but like not as a control finisher. Like I feel like this needs to be like a mid-range, you know, some sort of mid-range type card. That's just, you know, it's something that you play out and could get removed, but you have more stuff in your hand that, you know, that type of thing, right? I don't know. Just my thoughts. But Valkyrie Harbinger, it's cool art, right? I didn't even talk about the art on any of these cards yet. Valkyrie Harbinger is pretty cool art. I think that's pretty dope. I thought this one, the Rampage of Valkyries, I thought that the art on that one was very cool. It's a little busy. I think the blue is a bit much. I mean, I think they could have just left it white, but it's still cool. Like, I don't care. I mean, it's just, that's a minor note. The Cleaving Reaper, I thought was freaking cool. Her eyes are kind of freaking me out, but like, look at that. Look at that, the double-sided axe, though. Fucking sick. She would fit in an Orzhov Angels deck, but do you really want to fight? If you want to clog up that 5-mana slot, if you're putting Baneslayer Angel and the Harbinger or whatever. Kaya's looking cool. I like the I can't really tell because the picture is a little pixelated, but is it like a dreadlock mohawk or is it just like an afro hawk or something? I can't really tell. Yeah. I thought like this the Magda has like the alternate art, which is a little weird. But I like it. Yeah. So, and then the Elementalist, even if this card is not very good, the art's cool. Big dad bod giant, right? Fucking, I don't know what that is. Is he throwing that at me? Making some sort of like frost ball? I don't know. But cool art on all the cards. And I don't know. So things we can deduce from what we've seen so far. They're pushing tribal a lot. Angels and God, like angels appear to be a thing. Like we've already seen 3 angel-based cards. I mean, those could be the only angel cards that come out in the set. But like angels are clearly like a part of it, and I think it's kind of like the Valkyrie, like they're pushing like Valkyrie and angels, and like those are kind of one and the same thing. So it's like Valkyries and angels and Norse mythology mixing with creature types that are viable and, well, not viable, but creature types that exist in Magic the Gathering. Potentially could be viable. Angels could be a thing. You never know. If enough angel support comes out there, there could be a good angels deck out there. Angels are kind of a thing. Pushing tribal a lot. That's basically, and possibly, this is not my middle finger, by the way. That's the ring finger. Possibly modal dual face cards with equipment on one side and spell, creature, or something on the other. So those are the 3 things we can deduce from these cards. So yeah, that's basically it. That's everything I found. I'll be doing these periodically. I won't be doing them every single day. It'd be a little bit much. Obviously, for those of you that can find these cards on Twitter, on Reddit, and all the other resources around where you can find these things, you don't need to watch these videos, but maybe you just want to watch to hear the thoughts of my thoughts. But how much value is really in that? Tons. I'm a genius. But yeah, I'll be doing these periodically, and everything I can find from where I can find it. So, yeah, thanks for watching. This is the first episode of the Kaldheim spoilers. There will be more, throughout the month as we lead up to the release, which I think is in January. Early January is when the set releases, I think, on Arena, and then later on in January is when the set becomes available in paper, I believe. So yeah, those are the cards. Let me know what you think about them. We'll catch you in the next one. Thanks, guys.